get some media publicity and elsewhere. So it's really just about moving the incentives more towards like Elon's particular approval of you and your ability to then thrive in the Republican Party in the future.
It's that, and it's also if you get rewarded if you do what I want you to do, and the threat is also hanging over that of if you don't, then there's going to be infinite money basically put towards a primary challenger if you get crosswise. So, it is definitely intended to send a signal to all. And so far, it's really worked. Actually, Lisa Murkowski was giving some speech back in Alaska where she was talking about he could fund a primary challenger. I could be done tomorrow if he just drops however much he wants to drop. So they're definitely.
She thinks that's true because she survived multiple.
She might be one of the rare ones that could survive because Alaska is so unique.
Campaign. You know how insane that is?
Yeah. But I mean, that is definitely they're definitely thinking about it, given how central money in politics is. And it's not just the money, like you said. I mean, he's got the president, he's got Twitter. They have so much power and control over this party at this point that even someone like Lisa Murkowski has to at least be worried that it would be a problem for her. Let's go ahead and put now D1 up on the screen. This is the very latest with regard to the Alien Enemies Act deportations. So a judge warned of possible consequences after DOJ pushback on questions about the deportation flight. Let me read you a little bit of this here so I can make sure to get the legalese correct. So it says a federal judge Wednesday warned of the possibility of consequences after they pushed back. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg had ordered the Trump administration to submit answers to his questions about the timing of the deportation flights and custody handover of deportees, giving the government until noon Wednesday to respond. The government submitted a filing Wednesday morning asking for a pause of that order to answer his questions. It contended that the answers could expose negotiations with foreign countries to serious risk of micromanaged and unnecessary judicial fishing expeditions and potential public disclosure. The judge was not impressed with this. The government basically threatened that they may invoke state secrets doctrine to keep this all private, even though, we talked the other day about we actually all know now because of public flight tracking information where the flights were, when they took off, when they landed, all that stuff. Not to mention that they themselves released and amplified these videos of the, detainees and having their head shaved and all that sort of stuff. So in any case, the judge said the government's motion is the first time it's suggested that disclosing the information requested by the court could amount to the release of state secrets. To date, in fact, the government has made no claim that information is even classified. He continued, for example, the Secretary of State has revealed many operational details of the flights, including the number of people involved, many of their identities, the facility to which they were brought, the manner of treatment, time window during which these events occurred. Court is therefore unsure at this time how compliance with its minute order would jeopardize state secrets. He gave the Justice Department until noon Thursday, that's today, possibly after this even gets posted, to either answer his questions about the flights or invoke the state secrets doctrine and explain the basis for such invocation. So TLDR is they're still trying to stonewall, and the judge is getting increasingly impatient.
Yes, and they may get held in contempt. Even if they do, it's going to go on a rocket to the appellate court, and then from the appellate court, it's going to go to the Supreme Court. So there's still quite a bit to happen here. Bringing back to the judge conversation, it is just becoming clear that there are so many of these things. I have spoke to one friend who said that this might actually be packaged with a multitude of the other judges' orders so that SCOTUS tries to get ahead of in the last 48 hours, we've had the USAID court decision, the transgender decision, there was USIP, and there's also this one. So it is one that I actually am missing one. I'm forgetting exactly what it is, but that's 5 literally just in the last 72 hours.
Yeah.
That these questions of temporary restraining order and the role of district appellate and timely process and all of that could be picked up by SCOTUS ASAP in order to head off future showdowns like the one that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, you referenced the USIP one. Let's see, this is D4 we can put up on the screen. It's just the latest info here. A judge has denied a restraining order to block Doge from its takeover of the U.S. Institute of Peace, saying that despite being offended by Doge's hostile and threatening treatment of American citizens, there are issues with the merits of the lawsuit. So that one, no final ruling here, but a temporary restraining order in this instance was denied. And then I believe they'll begin to weigh in on the merits next week, on Monday, if memory serves. So that's basically the latest. But, the campaign around pressuring the judges is a central part of their strategy at this point. And, floating impeachment for judges, Elon floating, like putting his money behind it. Trump was asked, Ryan and Emily played this, was asked about like, oh, would you ever just defy their court orders? And he said, no, but you need to look at some of these judges. You need to look into some of these judges, what seem to be sort of like tacitly backing this direction to put pressure on them. Do I think that any of them could actually get impeached, given that, as Elon apparently doesn't know, it takes 67 votes in the Senate in order to impeach? I think that is not going to happen. But, they, again, are trying to send a message and make it uncomfortable. I think in some of these instances, it could backfire. I mean, these are human beings. If you're aggressively threatening them, et cetera, sometimes people get their back up and it makes them even more determined. But, the other thing with regard to this particular Judge Boasberg is like, if you look at his case record, he's definitely not like a lib. He was actually put in place first by George W. Bush. He's had a bunch of decisions that actually went in favor of Trump. So, the caricature of him is certainly not accurate in terms of the way he's being portrayed as some quote unquote radical left judge.
Yeah, I mean, it is annoying to see them try and paint that as both. People are pointing out his wife or his daughter or whatever. Look, we talked about this in our debate. I think it's crazy, the idea that a judge could take a U.S. military aircraft and turn around. Or
it actually wasn't a military aircraft. It was a ICE chartered flight. But there's many instances of judge rulings having an impact on things that happen overseas because your ruling applies to the agency. The agency is giving the direction. And so it's not crazy, it's not unprecedented, it's happened many times.
I was about to zoom out a little bit and not just talk about the flight, but like, for example, the transgender order. It's like this was a policy implemented by executive review by the Obama administration, then flipped by the Trump administration. And now the judge ruling that actually this violates the law is literally citing Hamilton in their footnotes. So it's like, let's all also be like a little bit honest here.
Yeah, but that's fine. But that's why you have an appeals process.
No, I'm not disputing that, but I get very annoyed at this idea that like there's this worshipfulness of the judges and the courts when anytime some crackpot judge in Texas rules on mifepristone, it's like, oh, the courts are illegitimate, this is ridiculous. When the Supreme Court rolls on SCOTUS, it's like, oh, we got to pack the court. It's like, let's be honest here about like reverence and annoyance for judges both on sides of the political spectrum and for where that appeals process comes in. I mean, I genuinely do think many of these judges' orders are patently insane, like the transgender one in particular. I'm like, under what rule are you allowed to say that this is some like civil rights violation when it was an executive policy from the very beginning that was put into place by Obama, flipped by Trump, and now basically put back into place by Biden and then flipped by Trump again? It is just so obviously within the Article 2 powers of the commander-in-chief under the U.S. Constitution. Now this is going to take forever in terms of pushing things through the court. Like, that's why, if anything, I'm cheering for like a fulsome decision, because this is not the way that a government should be run, like literally constantly being changed by some district court. We saw the same thing in the first Trump administration. Some Hawaii judge will rule like this is not legitimate, and the travel ban is off.
I haven't acquainted myself really with the transgender decision. I haven't dug into
the Hamilton.
I haven't dug into the legal merits of the case, et cetera. So I don't want to opine on that one. But I mean, the reason that there's so many court decisions is because they're violating the law so frequently. That's the reason why. And I mean, you've had judges that Trump appointed rule against Trump. You've had George W. Bush appointees. You've had, across the spectrum, because what they're doing is so extreme. Now, much of this will go through the appeals process and will go up to the Supreme Court. That's the way that this is supposed to go. But, to discuss that this is a concerted strategy for them to try to intimidate the judges, put pressure on them. And they also, they're playing this game where they are in defiance of court orders. I mean, with the planes is probably the most brazen example, but also with USAID and a bunch of these other decisions, the judge will issue a very clear ruling and they'll just be like, no. And they'll come up with we didn't understand, or we thought you meant this, or actually we're doing it under this other power, whatever. But it does stack up to persistent defiance of the courts in a way that is extraordinary, in a way that we have not seen before. And, that does represent a sort of new era